important meeting, and it is a big honor that we have also the minister here on board. So welcome to all the participants, welcome to everyone who is contributing to this important topic, which will lead us forward. A special thanks from my side goes to Mr. Jyotilal, who is the person who is pushing us very much to move the topic of green hydrogen in the transport sector of Kerala forward since many months, because without this, we wouldn't have been able to prepare this conference in a way that it is now happening. We are interested in this topic because Smart Sustainable Urban Transport Project, a bilateral project to support sustainable urban transport solutions in Indian cities and for India as a country, is targeting zero-emission transport solutions. We want to promote mobility in a way that it is a modern service that is promoted, that is delivered to the citizens of the different Indian cities and states. And we want also to be open technology-wise. Very often nowadays, everyone is looking at e-mobility, and this is connected to e-buses or to battery-driven solutions. But there are other solutions in the market that might be possible and that might be offering solutions in the future. Green hydrogen would be one of them. So it's a very important topic to have a sound discussion and to have a very good preparation if we want to move things forward insofar. And I'm proud that we have been able to organize this meeting to move the discussion on a very detailed basis forward. Happy to listen to all the contributions, and back to Krishna. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Jorgen. I would now like to invite Mr. Jyotilal, Principal Secretary, Transport Department, Kerala, to invite all and to introduce the workshop. Over to you, Jyotilal, sir.
Honorable Minister for Transport, Government of Kerala, Advocate Anthony Raju, Project Head of Smart SUT of GIZ, so Jorgen, CEO of Niti Aayog, Amitabh Kant sir, who will be joining in another 5 to 10 minutes. Other dignitaries who are participating, Sri Shirish, Krishna Desai, Lagu Parashar, and all experts from across the globe who are participating in the workshop. Actually, it is so timely when we have signed the Paris Agreement, and by 2050 we are supposed to become net zero emission. So it's a great challenge. In fact, now the world across this talk how to reduce emission, and transport sector contributes much, and probably Kerala has been one of the leading states as far as the adopting technology for reducing the emissions are concerned. Being the cleanest and greenest state in the country, in fact, we have been pioneers in adoption of technology. If you see Indian space research, actually it is started from and it's all based in Kerala. They use hydrogen for interplanetary movement or for the rocket launch or the moon mission. So we have got the best scientific community here. In fact, the Kerala government has brought one of the first states to bring the EV policy, where 1 million electric vehicles are to be there on the roads by 2025. So when we talk about electric mobility, it starts with hybrid, then it comes to battery electric, and the end, that means the vehicles which are a long haul or the trucks, buses, all need to go for fuel cell, so that the battery size can be, everyone knows the limitations of the battery electric vehicles. One is the range is an anxiety, second is the charging time, charging centers availability, then limited life of battery. Most of the batteries are will have to be replaced in 8 years. Then the issues of grid balancing. If everyone goes for electric, whether the grid will be able to provide the electric supply 24/7. So these limitations can be overcome. And when you go for marine sector, again that issue is there. Probably Kerala is one of the pioneers in the sense that we brought the first solar boat in the entire country. The world's first 100% airport which is run on solar power is in Kerala. We got the UN award also for that. We have got excess power, probably one of the first airports in the entire world where free electricity is given for charging centers. that is in Cochin International Airport. So we have brought so many things. Water metro is another great thing. With KfW funding, we are ready with the battery, the water metro which runs like the Alstom. The Alstom has developed the superstructures, whereas the LTO batteries from Toshiba is, and so it is integrated by Siemens, and probably it's one of the model for the entire world, how water transport can be made effective use of. In fact, the Honorable Minister has been taking keen interest how we can use the national waterway, which starts from Kollam, one end of Kerala, up to the other end, that is Kasaragod, how we can put the electric boats. Then the limitations was the battery charging time as well as the infrastructure required for the charging. The hydrogen fuel cell is an answer for that. How we can use the use the waterways for freight movement as well as water transport. That's another great challenge. In fact, Kerala is the first state probably to bring this within the EV policy, so that hybrid electric, battery electric plus fuel cell electric. It's only that battery is replaced by the fuel cell. Energy storage medium is the hydrogen. So we have brought, in fact, last budget, the Honorable Finance Minister has announced tax incentive at par with electric vehicles, so that the fuel cell vehicle also are charged only 2.5% as a road tax. So we brought the first pilot project in the country with the SCT College of Engineering, which comes under Transport Department, to do the R&D on how best we can adopt this technology. In fact, I should thank the Toyota team for importing the brand new second generation Mirai, the hydrogen fuel cell cars for the pilot project. Apart from this, last budget we have announced 10 fuel cell buses will be deployed in Kochi city as a feeder for the Kochi metro. In fact, I should thank GIZ for taking giving us the support to develop a roadmap for the hydrogen economy in Kerala, being the probably first state in India to go for a 100% hydrogen economy. So the roadmap for a hydrogen economy will be presented in today's meeting. This will be helping probably in a national level, scaling up at national level. Let me tell you, with yesterday's announcement by the Reliance that they will supply hydrogen at less than $1. I think that is going to change the entire economics of it, because less than $1 means it is become much cheaper compared to even diesel and other gasoline. So it becomes that addresses the first issue. Second issue to be addressed is the fuel cell, indigenization of the fuel cell, and make the fuel cells within India. Under Atmanirbhar Bharat, I am sure a lot of companies have now come forward to set up electrolyzer units as well as fuel cell, and indigenization is also happening. So actually we are moving from reliance to self-reliance. We are in the stage of independence of fuel cell now, of the carbon fuels, fossil fuels, and we are going from transforming from independence to independence, energy independence. I think that's a roadmap which we have prepared. So let us, with these few words, let me welcome the Honorable Minister, who has been pioneering and leading the department to greater heights. And we are trying to, not only in the road transport sector, in the silver line with semi-high speed, the water transport sector, marine sector, as well as the shipping and aviation, we are planning to use the fuel cell, and the roadmap for the same is being made. In fact, Kerala is one state which has got already our refineries have got Air Products USA has invested in, and they generate 3 lakh cubic meters per hour hydrogen in the using the natural gas. Electrolyze Travancore Cochin Chemicals, another company which is already generating this as a byproduct. Then how to combine wind and solar, and probably in the detailed presentation we'll be covering it, so I'm not getting into details. Offshore wind is another opportunity. So with these few words, let me welcome the Honorable Minister for Transport Kerala, Sri Anthony Raju, to this workshop and for the inauguration. The Smart SUT project has been funded by GIZ. In fact, they have been I have been after them, and in fact, gender issues, and these are the two studies which have been taken up, and in fact, I have been making use of them to the full extent. So with their support only, we could prepare the roadmap and arrange such a international level workshop on the green hydrogen and its possibilities. Project head of the Sri Jogan Bauman of the Smart SUTG said, I welcome him to this meeting. In fact, Srimati Krishna Desai is there, Legu Parashar and Shirish, all of them are there. The entire team has been working relentlessly. Our CEO of Niti Aayog, Sri Amitabh Kant sir, who has been driving the green hydrogen revolution in the country, is here. Welcome Sri Amitabh Kant sir to this workshop on green hydrogen and the strategy for the transport sector. I welcome Honorable CEO of Niti Aayog, Sri Amitabh Kant sir, to this workshop. Sri Jaideep, who is the Mahua, he is supposed to join, but unfortunately he had another meeting, so he couldn't join. All other experts from across the globe who are participating in this international workshop, I welcome all of you to this meeting. And with these few words, let me invite the Honorable Minister Advocate Sri Anthony Raju to give the inaugural address. Thank you, sir.
Mr. Amitabh Kant, IAS, CEO, Niti Aayog. Dr. B.P. Joy, IAS, Chief Secretary, Government of Kerala. Mr. Jorgen Bowman, Project Head, Smart. Mr. K.R. Jodhilal, IAS, Principal Secretary, Kerala State Transport Department. Sri Jaideep, OSD, Ministry of Housing and Urban Affairs. Respected dignitaries participating in this workshop. Climate change and the need for reduction of carbon emission is a hot topic worldwide today. This topic is discussed not only in classrooms of very remote villages, but also in the global summits where great leaders of the world take part. As this is a burning issue, there has been discussions during the last few decades. After the Paris Summit on global climate change, world leaders at last accepted the need for pollution control for the future of the whole mankind. They started to discuss seriously about the steps to control global warming. Today, the need for pollution control has been accepted by everyone, but the real issue is who will take a lead role to control this global menace. Now, Kerala has taken lead role in this issue. Kerala has always been in the forefront for adopting climate-friendly and environmentally sustainable technologies for the development of the state. We are leading the country in achieving the SDG goals. Transport sector contributes significantly to the carbon emission, and we have to reduce the carbon emission as per the Paris Convention in order to limit the increase in global temperature to maximum 1.5 degrees Celsius. Kerala has one of the highest vehicular population with more than one vehicle per 3 persons. With the National Green Tribunal ordering ban of diesel vehicles more than 10 years in certain cities in the country with a high air pollution, we have started looking for alternate fuels. That is how CNG, LNG, electric and hydrogen fuel cells were explored as alternate fuels in place of fossil fuels. India's first LNG bus, first solar boat, world's first 100% solar airport, first water metro, etc. were commissioned in Kerala as part of the above drive for green and ultra-low emission mobility options. A robust EV policy aiming at 1 million electric vehicles by 2025 has been announced. More than 100 EV charging stations are being set up by Kerala State Electricity Board and IOC, apart from battery swapping stations. More than 4,500 electric vehicles are registered in this state. Considering the time taken for charging, battery size, cost, weight of the battery, range of the BEV, it was found that for heavy-duty trucks, buses, train, boats and ships, aeroplanes, fuel cells instead of battery is the better option. Based on the above suggestions, which emerged in the Evolve Summit conducted by Government of Kerala, a pilot project for R&D has been sanctioned by Government of Kerala to Sri Chitra Training College of Engineering, which is owned by Kerala State Road Transport Corporation. And for the last 2 years, to run 2 hydrogen FC cars and buses between Kochi and Trivandrum at a cost almost 10 crores. More has been approved a pilot project. Accordingly, Toyota has imported 2 second-generation hydrogen cars, Mirai, for the pilot project and is now awaiting the PESO approval and green hydrogen supply by IOCL using the excess solar energy at CI. In the recent budget, Government of Kerala, as a first phase of implementation, 10 hydrogen buses were announced as a feeder of Kochi Metro for airport connectivity and also the IT park. With the help of GIS, as part of Smart SUT, a detailed roadmap to make Kerala the first hydrogen economy in the country has been prepared. I am sure that the National Hydrogen Mission announced by the Government of India, the roadmap for implementing the mission by Government of Kerala would be a guiding light for the entire country in achieving net zero emission by 2020. Our Principal Secretary for Transport, Sri Jyotilal, has taken much trouble to organize this workshop. I appreciate him for the leadership and the initiative taken by him to conduct this excellent seminar. With these few words, let me inaugurate the workshop on role of green hydrogen in India's zero emission plan in transport sector. I thank the CEO, Niti Aayog, GIS Secretary, Morth, MNRE, Mohua, and all other organizers for making this workshop a grand success. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. Now I invite the CEO of Niti Aayog, who has been driving the mission in the country and taking India from, as I said, reliance to self-reliance and independence of fossil fuels to independence, energy independence. Welcome, sir. Amitabh Khan, sir, I will request you to give the keynote address, sir.
Honorable Minister, Mr. Anthony Raju, Mr. Jyotilal, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, let me at the outset wish everyone a very good morning and hope that all of you are doing well and keeping safe in these very uncertain times. I would also like to congratulate the Kerala government for taking the initiative on green hydrogen and also like to thank it for inviting me to share my views on the role of green hydrogen in India's zero emissions plan. Energy is a master resource which has the ability to catapult or cripple a growing economy. The rising threat of climate change has transitioned from climate science conferences to billions being spent on disaster relief expenses. Global markets are increasingly demanding carbon-free products. Realizing the impending threat to the economies, several countries have announced net zero targets. Several economies have also started to reduce their carbon emissions in order to tackle the threat of climate change. European Union recently came up with a proposal of carbon border adjustment mechanism that will place tax on imports from countries which emit carbon. Supplying hydrogen as an industrial feedstock is a major industry now. Hydrogen used in ammonia fertilizer production has helped feed a growing global population, which tripled since the 1950s. Climate concerns and an ever-increasing focus on zero carbon renewable energy globally has made hydrogen-based energy sources more relevant than ever. In this global context, it is crucial for India to take the lead and get ahead in the race for new and upcoming green technologies and become self-reliant and a world leader. being an early adopter of hydrogen energy technology, will pay off in the long term, given hydrogen's cross-sectoral sustainability. While many countries are confused between colors of hydrogen, there is only one color that India sees. It's green hydrogen. Talking about India, it'll overtake the European Union as the world's third largest energy consumer by 2030, according to the International Energy Agency. In its recent forecast, India will account for the biggest share of energy demand growth over the next 2 decades. Our energy imports will double to $360 billion. This creates challenges, but also new avenues and new opportunities of growth by thinking of new ways to derive this extra energy within India. India has the potential to completely reimagine its energy economy in consonance with demand for clean and sustainable products. This can be achieved by leveraging the results of decades of innovation in the clean energy sector. In the process, India can show the way to developed countries that sustainability and rapid growth can go hand in hand. Green hydrogen is currently enjoying unprecedented political and corporate interest. At least 43 countries have now drafted policies or are setting up strategies for the hydrogen economy. An innocuous observer might be puzzled by the sudden global movement towards hydrogen and might ask, why hydrogen? And more importantly, why now? Let me dwell on this. Why hydrogen? Hydrogen is uniquely clean. The USP of hydrogen is that it can help to decarbonize industrial processes and economic sectors, where reducing carbon emissions is both urgent and hard to achieve. Fertilizers, oil refining, heavy industry like steel and heavy-duty transport are some examples of hard sectors that will need hydrogen to decarbonize because they are known as difficult to abate sectors. Green hydrogen is local. Not many realize that electricity accounts for less than 1/5, only 17% of the energy consumption in India. The rest of our energy needs are fulfilled by solid and liquid fuels, on which we have more than 80% import dependency. Green hydrogen has the potential to replace these imported fuels. In addition, many imported key chemicals like methanol and ammonia can be locally produced utilizing green hydrogen, supporting the movement towards an Atmanirbhar Bharat. In addition, hydrogen does not compete with other technologies like battery, which predominantly serves low-intensity applications like low-duty mobility, electronics, and short-duration power backup. The Global Hydrogen Council has in a recent study classified India as a net exporter of green hydrogen from 2030 thanks to cheap renewable tariffs. We are talking about green hydrogen because the solar prices in India have fallen to less than 2 rupees. And solar can be used to crack water through electrolyzer and make green hydrogen. Green hydrogen is also a chemical feedstock with an existing global market of about 70 million tons. India already consumes about 6 MT of hydrogen, which is about 8.5% of the global demand annually. If we were to convert this grey hydrogen based on imported natural gas into green hydrogen, which is produced domestically, we would do a big service. Green hydrogen is critical to meet India's target of 450 gigawatt of renewable energy by 2030. The target is extremely ambitious due to surplus generation of renewables in peak generation hours. With further addition of renewables to its power grid, India will face a duck curve as experienced by California. To utilize cheap solar power, we need to find other uses of solar power during its generation hours. Through the scaling up of green hydrogen from renewables, we will require a significant amount of renewable energy capacity addition to help India march towards its 450 gigawatt target fixed by the Honorable Prime Minister. Electricity typically accounts for 70% of the production cost of green hydrogen. Hence, Surplus electricity from India's renewable plants can augment green hydrogen economics. This will also enable us to protect our grid. In the near term, the focus is about using green hydrogen in refining, gas blending, and ammonia industries. The future of green hydrogen is green steel, where there will be a push from EU and the US for carbon-free steel and carbon pricing taxes for competitiveness against coal-based technologies. India should not wait for green steel to be mainstreamed in the West. India should be the early mover in green steel. For the long term, we are looking at using hydrogen in commercial vehicles and for long-term city-to-city movement. Batteries can be used in two-wheelers, three-wheelers, and four-wheelers, but for commercial vehicles and city-to-city movement, green hydrogen will be the best fuel. In addition, e-fuels such as synthetic ethanol can also be made from hydrogen, which can be used in existing internal combustion engines with a slight modification as we have 20% ethanol blending targets. Our view is that green hydrogen is the next big opportunity because of low renewable costs in India. No other country in the world has this opportunity, and it's a clear strategy and a clear policy framework which will help us to reap its benefit. This is a sunrise area of growth where India must take the lead and give us the huge opportunity, because without this, we can't bring down imports or reduce our carbon emissions. That is why the Honorable Prime Minister in his Independence Day address said that our focus will be on green hydrogen and we should become a zero importer of energy by the year 2047, when India becomes 100 years of Azadi, gets 100 years of its Azadi. India should therefore have an ambitious target for green hydrogen and electrolyzer capacity by 2030 on similar lines as renewables. We will mandate blending a certain percentage of green hydrogen with grey hydrogen. We need to do that for existing applications like oil refining and fertilizers, depending on the viability gap, and we are undertaking studies to do this. And mandate new greenfield capacities of hydrogen applications like oil refining and fertilizers to use only green hydrogen from a future cutoff date to avoid long-term lock-ins. All these different options are presently under examinations by different ministries. India should aim to build a vibrant hydrogen product export industry such as green steel using a phased manufacturing program. Capital costs contribute around 30% of green hydrogen costs, and dollar-linked contracts for procurement of hydrogen need to be explored in relevant demand sectors, as is done for oil and gas. Globally, there's a huge supply bottleneck for electrolyzers to the tune of about 90 gigawatt, and there's a possibility for India to capture this market. And probably as we move forward, we need to have a production-linked incentive in this sector for manufacturing electrolyzers. India should plan to roll out a production-linked incentive scheme for electrolyzer manufacturing to address the huge global supply bottleneck. Green hydrogen is the future of energy. It has the potential to radically reduce imports and catalyze India's transition to climate action leadership. Hence, it is critical for India to take steps to harness the huge potential of green hydrogen. For far too long, we have kept focusing on sunset areas of growth, whereas other nations seized opportunities in sunrise areas of growth and forged ahead. India's success in becoming one of the top 5 renewable countries was a remarkable change in direction. It is now time for India to step up and seize today's opportunities via the hydrogen mission for a sustainable and successful tomorrow. The Prime Minister has spelled out its broad contours in his Independence Day address, and we will take this forward to its implementation stage. Thank you so much for patiently hearing to the speech, and I hope the importance of green hydrogen will be well recognized by all of you. My special congratulations to the government of Kerala, its Honorable Minister, its Chief Secretary, and more so the dynamic Mr. Jyoti Lal, who has taken the initiative to be a big driver of hydrogen and especially green hydrogen in the context of Kerala. He has been a big leader and has pushed this envelope as far as green hydrogen is concerned. So I would like to take this opportunity of congratulating Kerala government for having driven this movement forward, and I wish it all the best. And from Government of India and from Niti Aayog in particular, we will work in very close partnership with the Government of Kerala to ensure that all its projects are made successful in the sphere of transportation and the use of green hydrogen in its march towards zero emission plan. Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen.
Thanks a lot, sir, for a very inspiring speech, and I'm sure that all the whatever the energy independence is going to be a reality by 2047, as the Honorable Prime Minister has announced, sir. Now I invite Krishna Desai to give a vote of thanks before going to the next session, which will be chaired by Amitabh Kant, sir. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, Honorable Minister, sir. Thank you, Shri Amitabh Kant, sir. Thank you, everyone from GIZ for inaugurating the session and starting the session. We'll now go on to the first session, which is the strategy adopted by different countries for initiating hydrogen fuel cell transportation system. Before we start, I would request everyone who is not presenting to switch off their audio and video. In case of questions to the panelists, you can either post the questions in chat box or raise your hand at the end of each session. We'll try to address all the sessions at the end of the session. I would now like to invite Mr. Laghu Parashar to moderate the first session. Laghu, over to you.
Yeah. Thanks. Thank you very much, Krishna. And good morning, everyone. And it's nice to hear Honorable Minister Jyotilal sir, and especially Amitabh Kant sir, about the vision of Government of India regarding green hydrogen. So following up on the opening session, now we have a next panel discussion on strategy for adopting hydrogen-based transport. We are joining by interesting panelists on this futuristic discussion. Both from Niti Aayog, Mr. Kant, and Ministry of Road Transport, Dr. Nicole, and representative from Hamburger, and Ministry of Road Transport, and Mr. Jyotilal itself. Yeah. So the session will be chaired by none other than Mr. Amitabh Kant. So although he has been introduced, but I'll take this opportunity to reintroduce him for the larger audience who has recently joined. So Mr. Kant is currently the CEO of Government of India's think tank Niti Aayog. He has been instrumental rolling out the international award-winning campaigns such as Make in India, state as a leading manufacturing and tourism destination. Currently, Niti Aayog is supporting the initiative on National Hydrogen Energy Mission and has also prepared a green hydrogen strategy document, which is guiding India to become world's leader in green hydrogen and associated technology, part of which already been covered by Mr. Kant in his speech. Now I will request Mr. Amitabh Kant sir to give his views about hydrogen economy role in supporting India's zero emission program. Sir, over to you.
I have just spoken at length.
Yeah. So,
however, I would like to say very clearly that green hydrogen is very critical in our onward march to achieve energy independence. This is particularly so because India has been able to advance very steadily in its solar energy program and has achieved close to about 95 gigawatt of solar. But more important than that is the cost at which solar is being made available. The recent bids have been at about rupees 199, which is about 2.7 cents per kilowatt hour, which makes it amongst the cheapest prices at which solar is available. Our target has now been fixed at about 450 gigawatt by the Prime Minister of India by 2030. Beyond around 180 to 190 gigawatt, it will be very difficult to generate more and more solar because of grid issues, because solar is produced during certain peak times during the day, whereas the peak demand happens during late night. And therefore, this imbalance between peak demand and peak production requires that we should be able to use solar energy during peak hours for other purposes. Otherwise, you will end up with the duck curve as has happened in California and Texas, and there will be huge strain on the grid. And therefore, you need to use solar energy to produce green hydrogen and crack water through the process of electrolyzer. And it is possible for India to use solar to crack it and produce green hydrogen at fairly low cost. A recent project established by one of the companies, Acme in Bikaner, which is a rather small project, has shown that it is possible to produce green hydrogen at about roughly $3.5 per kg. Our view is that if government is able to push for use of green hydrogen in refinery, fertilizer, and steel, it'll be able to push for demand generation through aggregating demand. And this will help us through several measures. One is mandating demand in certain areas. As I had said, that we are one of the biggest consumer of grey hydrogen, which is based on imported natural gas. And therefore, if we are able to push for demand in refinery sector, and if we are able to do dollar-based contracts as is done for oil, because this will replace oil, and if we are able to waive transmission and distribution costs as is done for solar energy, we will make it extremely viable, and we'll be able to bring the rates down to in our view, through competitive tendering and through support, to about roughly $2 to $2.5 per US dollar per kilogram. And in the long run, if we keep pushing for demand in the green hydrogen sector by also supporting the movement of developing electrolyzer, and electrolyzer is no rocket science. This is a 100-year-old technology, and this provides a massive opportunity for India to become manufacturers of electrolyzer. And if India is able to become the center for electrolyzer manufacturing, it will be possible for India to bring the rates down to about $1 per kilogram by 2030. And that is the challenge for India, to become the cheapest manufacturer of green hydrogen, the cheapest manufacturer of electrolyzer, to have the largest program of green hydrogen in the world. The target fixed by EU is about roughly about, they are talking of about 40 gigawatt. India should look at a much larger program, not only because of its domestic demand, but use the domestic demand to really push for export of ammonia. Green hydrogen is difficult to transport, but when you use nitrogen for converting hydrogen, green hydrogen, you can develop ammonia, and green ammonia can be exported across the world. So we can emerge using the green ammonia route, which we can use in all our fertilizer plants based in India as well as in coastal area, and then use green ammonia for export purposes. So our objective is that India should become the cheapest producer of hydrogen. It should be a champion in green hydrogen manufacturing. It should be a champion in electrolyzer manufacturing. It should be the first country to mandate the use of green hydrogen instead of grey hydrogen in refineries. And it should emerge as one of the biggest exporters of green ammonia, because from 2026 onwards, January 26 onwards, there'll be border taxes, and you will not be able to export your products which will have carbon emissions. And therefore, green hydrogen and green ammonia is a must. And US itself will be importing Europe itself will be importing about close to 500 gigawatt worth of green ammonia. So therefore, at least 100 to 150 gigawatt of green ammonia must be exported from India. So it opens up this vast opportunity of becoming a champion in climate change, champion in green hydrogen, champion in ammonia, and making a radical transformation in your manufacturing process. I'm making these points because it will be very difficult for our companies to get investments, very difficult for our companies to get high valuation unless in the post-COVID world, they do not digitize and they do not go green. So going green should be the mantra. And once you go green, starting from refinery and fertilizer, the next biggest opportunities will be in green steel, and the biggest opportunity will be in long distance transportation. That is commercial transportation and city to city movement of buses. And I'm really delighted that government of Kerala has taken the lead. Some work has been done in Pune where biogas has been used to convert to green hydrogen and then do city transportation using biogas for green hydrogen. And it would be worthwhile for Kerala to study that model, which will enable it to technologically leapfrog. The opportunity for India is that quite often we get into sunset areas of industry. We should use technology to leapfrog and get into this sunrise area of growth and become a green manufacturer through the green hydrogen route for the future. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you very much, sir. So explicitly defining the roadmap and the vision. I know you have to leave now. Actually, I've been told. So I would like to thank you to join us today on behalf of Government of Kerala and GIZ. And thank you very much for giving us the vision as far as green hydrogen in India is concerned. Thank you very much, sir.
Thank you.
We'll have third panelist, Dr. Marcus. And Dr. Marcus is General Project Manager, Hamburger Horstmann AG. Hamburger Horstmann AG is envisioned a 100% emission-free, low-noise bus fleet from 2030 onward. Under their project, the fuel cell technology is being considered for extending the range of electric buses. They undertook testing of fuel hybrid buses on one of the routes from 2014 and worked with the manufacturer to design the efficient and functional bus model. Currently, they are in a process of procuring 50 fuel cell buses. Today, we have Dr. Marcus, who is General Project Manager, Hamburger Horstmann, to share their experience of hydrogen fuel cell. He will be talking about the future of fuel cell vehicle, advantage and disadvantage, and his experience. Yeah, Dr. Marcus.
Thank you, Lago. Can you hear me? Can you see me?
Yeah, sure. Perfect.
Okay, good. Thank you very much for the invitation. I feel quite honored to share my experience with you and that you even asked about it. Yes, I was asked to give you some insights on the experience of the Hamburg Hochbahn with respect to hydrogen buses and battery electric buses as well in the past. Maybe in the very beginning, I would like to highlight that we have both technologies here in Hamburg, so battery electric buses and hydrogen fueled buses. And we have a lot of experience with both types of buses for almost let's say some decades. So the beginning of the 2000s, we had the first hydrogen buses here. And maybe this is the reason why I was asked to share some experience. You just mentioned the fact that we have a tender phase ongoing at the moment. So actually, we are right in the middle of the tender phase. And this brings me to the first aspect I would like to share with you, which is regarding maturity of the technology, reliability, and also the market availability. To be honest, the actual technological readiness level is not that high as it is compared to the battery electric buses. This is a experience that we just made in comparison of the two tenders we made, one for the battery electric buses, one for the hydrogen. And simply the number of manufacturers that took part in the tender phase was way lower in the hydrogen fueled buses. To be able to judge this fact, you have to know that traditionally, I'd say traditionally in Germany, product quality has a high is very important, even in tender phases, and thus maybe the fact that many manufacturers that are just starting up or ramping up hydrogen production are not able to take part in the or to provide products that are suitable for the tendering. So this might be completely different all over the world. I don't know the details in India, especially. So this has to be judged of the transport operator anywhere. So if the market availability is good and the number of manufacturers is quite high, then this might be a completely different view on the topic. Then I would like to highlight the, let's say, most important advantage that hydrogen normally has compared to the battery electric buses, at least in the past, which is clearly the range of the buses. For the last years, battery electric buses really had the challenge to cope with the fact that their range that they were able to provide to transport operators was really low. So we started like 3 years ago with the first series buses, and they had just 150 kilometers of range. But just to give you a feeling for the development and the increase of ranges in this technology, this year's buses already provide a range of 250 kilometers, so more than 50% of increase in range, and obviously of in battery energy that is can be stored in the buses is really high within 3 years, and we are even looking forward to get more higher ranges within the next year, so even 50% more in 2 or 3 years ongoing. And this brings me to the fact that the most important advantage of battery of hydrogen fueled buses, which is the range, becomes less important in the future. Obviously, if you have regional operations and you have to travel, let's say, several hundred kilometers or even up to 1,000 kilometers, this might be even more interesting because, of course, battery fuel cell buses can even still provide higher ranges more easily. But in the region, or let's say in local operation, where your demand or requirements on the range are lower, this might be more challenging for the hydrogen bus. I would like to highlight another topic, which is the infrastructural requirements. This is a very good developing topic, especially in Germany as well for the hydrogen sector. You just heard my predecessor, Dr. Gemmann, who told you that there's a national hydrogen strategy. And of course, in this strategy also infrastructural increase, or let's say gas stations or hydrogen stations are supported more in the future. And thus, I would say from the discussions we had with manufacturers for hydrogen stations, that there is definitely an increase in this technology. So more and more reliable technology, the prices go down, and this was one of the major drawbacks in the past years for hydrogen. So the provision of infrastructure or the infrastructural requirements, let's say, but this tends to become even better in the future. Well, finally, to sum up, it depends. As always, I would like to say that, or I would like to emphasize that, as my predecessors already said, if you have a global strategy or global industry strategy of transforming all of your industry and your whole country to hydrogen, this might be a push for hydrogen fueled buses, of course. But we see this push as well in Germany now. But still, we from the Hochbahn believe that the transformation towards green hydrogen and cheap and compatible green hydrogen will still take some years. And these years we don't have, let's say, in Hamburg, we have to transform our fleet now. So we have to take the best technology and the most economic technology that we can provide right now. And this is clearly the battery electric bus at the moment. And still, of course, we have the vision of green hydrogen, which is available 24/7, 7 days a week, and so on. And still, if you transform electric energy from photovoltaic, so from PV or wind energy, and to hydrogen, and transform it back from hydrogen to electric energy that you have to use in your bus, you need more energy than directly using it for transportation. So in the end, you have to rely on the fact that you really have a great surplus of energy, and thus a great surplus of hydrogen. And in other cases, from my point of view, it doesn't make sense to use a lot of hydrogen, which is not green or which is not a surplus, because in the end you can transform your bus fleets more economic and especially more ecological towards battery electric buses. But in the end, it's a question of how to fit in the global strategy of the country or the industry. Of course, this is always a question that has to be discussed with other sectors as well. So maybe hydrogen would be a way better option for the beginning to be used in other industry sectors like steel, like transportation sector, which cannot be electrified by battery electric, thus airplanes or whatever. But yeah, that's some insights, some experience that I would like to share with you, with the experience from our tender, with the experience from our discussions with the manufacturers, and the overview of the German and European market.
Okay. Thank you very much, Marcus. So far you have not started the operation. You are in the process of tendering, is it?
We're still in the tendering phase. We're right before ending it, but we haven't announced the results yet.
Okay. Okay. So we have a couple of questions for you. It's like one question that according to you, as per your perception, when do you expect hydrogen buses to be competitive with electric buses as far as larger scale adoption is concerned?
Yeah. We made some investigations on this, and I think it's clearly up to the fact how expensive is hydrogen and obviously electricity in comparison to it. At the moment, we pay like 8 kilos or 8 to 9 euros per kilo hydrogen in Germany. And if you want to be competitive, you definitely have to go down to, let's say, 4 to 5 at least. Better would be 2 or 3 euros per kilo. And this 8 to 9 euros we pay for gray hydrogen. And it might be questionable if you can provide green hydrogen for half the price.
Okay. So yeah, we have questions are coming for you. Well, I'll continue to take up them for Marcus. Now the next question, I'm not sure since you have not started the operation, but if you want to answer, please do that. What is the cost per kilometer of hydrogen buses, excluding the staff cost? And if you can have some relative comparison also with electric buses, probably 1.5x or 2x or something.
Unfortunately, I'm not able to tell absolute values on this. But as I said, we did some investigation on system comparison, battery electric and hydrogen, and still hydrogen costs per kilometer would be higher than electric bus costs, because we have already the offers for all the buses and infrastructure, and still hydrogen is too expensive, and thus the costs per kilometer are higher.
Okay. And yeah, thanks. And how many, so far, do you have an idea how many hydrogen fuel buses are operating in Germany across?
I'm quite sure that it's less than 100 fuel cell buses. There are some dozens, let's say, spread over the country in several cities. And there are some cities and transport operators who are going for hydrogen fuel buses. But still, the dynamics, the drive is way higher in the battery electric sector. So all my colleagues from all the other cities, or let's say most of the other cities in Germany, are going for battery electric buses.
Okay. And like, would you like to highlight some kind of a broad features of the contracting which you are doing, because since it's a new technology, and how are you sharing the risk with the manufacturer, and because a lot of upskilling may also require as far as your staff is concerned. So once you are adopting the new technology, so how are you adopting all those things? So how are you sharing the risk and all this? Yeah,
it's good that you mentioned the complexity, or we think that the complexity of the fuel cell is quite high, and thus the reliability is low. In fact, that the experiences that we made in the past was that the fuel cell itself is not the problem. The problem is the low level of experience of the bus manufacturers that build buses around surrounding the fuel cell, let's say. We made experiences on the fact that some buses had to stay in the bus depot for weeks just because small spare parts from ordinary buses, which are not related to the fuel cell at all, cannot be delivered. And this is one of the main recommendations I would give. If you really want to transform your fleet, you have to rely on serious technology with a high reliability of the whole product. So you cannot buy 1 or 2 or 5 or 10 buses from a manufacturer. You have to rely on the fact that this manufacturer can provide 100 or 1,000 buses a year, and especially spare parts. Yeah.
Okay, thanks. Any assessment? So I'll request Shirish, if I'm skipping any question, please let me know. I'll try to cover up from the chat box. Yeah. So any assessment regarding how complex is the powertrain technology as in hydrogen fuel cell as when you compare with the ICE and the EV?
I'm not into the details. I'm sorry. But in the end, both fuel cell and battery electric buses are electric buses. So the powertrain from the electric motor is the same. In the end, it's a comparison between batteries and fuel cell, but I'm not into the details. I'm sorry.
Yeah, sure. That's okay. That's okay. But I think it should be same in that case because it is the same battery we are using. Shirish, any further question which I have skipped?
Yes, there are questions like Sumit has asked that how complex is the powertrain?
Yeah, we have covered. We have covered that.
So yeah, I think that is okay. And any.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So thanks a lot, Marcus. I think since Kerala government has already initiated the process. I think your experience will be very much useful, and we will be in touch with you in this regard. Thanks a lot for joining us today.
Thank you for your attention. Thank you for listening to me. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. So after Marcus, unfortunately, our official from MNRE and ORTH could not join us today because of some last-minute engagement. So we have next presentation by Mr. Jyotilal, and although he has already been introduced, but I'll for the benefit of all the people who has joined now, I'll reintroduce him. So Mr. Jyotilal is the Principal Secretary Transport and Aviation, Government of Kerala. He is responsible for policy making and implementation of major transportation project in the state of Kerala, and is involved in implementing Safe Kerala project, introduction of solar board, EV policy in Kerala. Kerala has planned to become the first state to run hydrogen powered buses as pilot project. Mr. Jyotilal is also instrumental in the introduction of hydrogen fuel cell project in Kerala. A visionary official, I would say a lot of innovations which we can see in government of Kerala, and Mr. Jyotilal somewhere behind all those innovation, be it transportation or be it other sector. I'll request Mr. Jyotilal sir to present your Kerala's roadmap for the hydrogen-based economy. Sir.
Thank you. I hope my screen is visible.
Yes, sir. Now.
Okay.
Yeah. Perfect.
In fact, thanks a lot for organizing such a workshop. As it is said, everything has evolved from the 5 values, and then all the 5 elements have come. And from the 5 elements, we have got various sources of energy. From, if you say, the old dictum is that Akashat Vayu, Vayu Agni, Agni Apa, Apa Prithvi. That means from Akasha came the Vayu, that's a wind. Wind power is the one power which is energy source. From Vayu Agni, that means from there fire has come. That is or sun or solar, you can say. Then Agni Apa, that means water, basically the hydroelectric power. Then last is the earth. From earth, the biomass. So I think all these are sources, all the 5 elements are sources of energy. How do we need to go back to the nature. The COVID has taught the world that we need to live in harmony with nature. I think this is a great lesson for the entire humanity. Net zero emission by 2050, and the Honorable Prime Minister that by 2047 we should become energy independent. That's a great vision. We are all working towards that. In fact, the Honorable CM and as well as our Transport Minister, they have been taking keen interest how to make Kerala as the net zero emission. That's why we brought the first EV policy by 2025 we should become maybe 100% EV in at least 3 cities. Yeah. Probably this slide, I think already Amitabh Khan sir has mentioned what is the decarbonizing vector across the various sectors. Refining, whether it is refining, as you said, you can at present it's all used by natural gas is used for generating hydrogen. As said in Air Products is already having a facility in Kochi for 3 lakh cubic meters per hour is a production capacity of hydrogen from the LNG. Then fertilizer industry is another thing, and green ammonia, iron and steel, green export of green steel. That's another another major initiative. Bulk chemicals and heavy duty transport, trucks, marine sector, trucks, buses, trains, as well as plane. I think that's a way to go. Then blending with natural gas, already I think GAIL has started. In fact, the GAIL Director Business Development will be making a presentation on that. Then energy storage, that's the cheapest way to store energy. Basically, hydrogen is nothing but a storage medium, just like a battery. Is better than, because you need not replace the fuel cell. That's a great advantage. In fact, the generators, the diesel generators will soon be replaced by hydrogen generators. Now, hydrogen is a complementary to the EV. In fact, the last Evolve summit which we conducted in Kochi, Honorable or Niti Aayog CEO was there. In fact, at that time we have that's where we identified that the fuel cell is the sector for the heavy duty trucks as well as the buses and long haul transport. Kerala's journey, in fact, as I mentioned in my welcome address earlier, that we have prepared the pilot project for implementation, first as a R&D project. Later on, now we have scaled it up to 10 buses as a feeder bus for Kochi Metro, and the roadmap for future implementation will also be presented here. Unfortunately, due to paucity of time, I will share the documents so that your inputs will be much useful for us to scale it up. Pilot deployment of hydrogen buses already has been announced in the last budget, and in fact, I will be showing some of the slides on the water metro, which we are using the L2O battery, and we are trying to replace. Cochin Shipyard has made the first water metro boats, and we are trying to replace the L2O battery with the fuel cell. Feasibility study has been done. In fact, the roadmap it talks about long haul intercity. That means the hydrogen highway from Trivandrum to Kochi initially, which has been approved by the Ministry of Road Transport and Highways to do the trial. Then later on extending it to Calicut, and short haul intracity, that is within the Cochin city and maybe the GCD area, and last mile feeder routes for the Kochi Metro buses to airport connectivity as well as IT parks. So that part has been already sanctioned. Then there are two critical elements as far as you talk about hydrogen. One is the demand generation. In fact, Sarah was mentioning about what all ways by which you can mandate the compulsory use of green hydrogen. Second is reduction in the cost of the hydrogen per kg. So as if you go by the announcement which Reliance has made, less than $1 per kg, that is going to be path breaking. I think it is possible. At present, we using floating solar, we are able to generate power less than 3 rupees. And I am sure with such cheap power and the potential for the use of water bodies and the dams in Kerala, so many rivers and dams and water bodies, we will be able to generate power, adequate power for the generating green hydrogen. So generation part is one. There the electrolyzer cost needs to come down. In fact, with the learning curve, I think it will definitely come down, as Amitabh Khan sir mentioned. Second is the compression, actually purification, compression, storage, and transportation. This is where this is another cost which is another part of the cost for the green hydrogen, and then dispensing cost. These are the three critical elements which you have analyzed. How best we can reduce it? I think part of it Amitabh Khan sir already mentioned. Transmission loss, you need to bring it down. Distribution costs, that means wheeling charges need to be either made zero or very low. ISFS charge across, using the grid across the country for green hydrogen generation, probably that would be another great initiative if we can do it. I think Government of India is already planning that way, so that you can generate power in maybe deserts of Rajasthan, or you use in the water bodies or in the offshore windmills. generate the power, transmit it across the country, you generate at the site so that the cost of transportation and storage can come down. Then dispensing is another cost which is involved. So our roadmap covers all the three areas. One is on the cost part of it, both on the generation as well as dispensing, compression, etc. Then how we can make it viable for the operators, so that initially we may require the viability of funding, but soon I think the total of TCO can be brought down at par with any diesel buses. That is what we are looking at. So this is the project design for the fuel cell deployment in a phased manner. In the first phase in 2022, and the second phase we are planning to complete by 24, and third phase by 26. So there the scenario one that involves intercity buses, long haul 13-meter buses in 16 routes, and last mile feeder buses for the Kochi Metro in 8 routes, and that there we will be putting 9-meter buses, and short haul in intra-city 13-meter buses in 16 routes. These are the routes which are identified, so that we will have a unless the TCO comes down, once the number of kilometers it runs increases. In fact, we are the probably first state to run buses on a viable way in Sabrimala season, when it's the round the clock it is run with without conductor. So you reduce the cost. Second is you have a captive audience, then captive commuters which are there. You ensure that the maximum kilometers covered per day. So I think that was with the zero subsidy we could make it viable, and then give a slight increase in the fare. Another one is now we are experimenting with non-fare box revenue, so that you allow them to carry luggage even if people don't carry, but even goods movement itself will give additional income. Second is how best we can use bus itself as another source of income for catching the violations. So this is with the AI cameras, we are able to detect and probably process the challans online, so that with zero manual intervention, we are able to generate income. If you now with the new Motor Vehicle Act, with a fine of minimum 500 rupees, you catch 40 violators. That means the personal transport people, or those who are maybe unauthorized parking or zigzag driving or without seat belt, that amount what we collect as a fine, that will be able to we may get enough money to run the buses probably free. So that's what we are now experimenting with. Another thing is inside and outside advertisement. That means non-fare box revenue is one way to make it viable, so that the public transport will be funded. In fact, Kerala, we have got a Kochi Metropolitan Transport Authority, which is probably first of its kind through a legislation has come. We are working on these additional sources of revenue to make the public transport viable. So these are the routes which we have identified in the roadmap for the Kerala. And actually the highway is a good concept. Probably across the country we need to plan hydrogen highways, so that it will be easy for investors to set up the hydrogen fueling stations. So this is the next one. Critical element is the hydrogen fueling stations which needs to be set up. In the hub and spoke model is what ideal for the state. In fact, the hydrogen pipeline across the state is what is planned. We have got a semi-high speed line which is where 24-meter right of way is there. So you can put the hydrogen pipeline on, and a hub and spoke model we can cater to the needs of the entire state. In fact, people have shown interest in investing, including companies across the globe. So that's a great beginning. And we have got so many ports, and three mega ports. One is the International Transshipment Hub at Vizhinjam, Cochin Port, which is already in operation, and Arikal, which is coming up in the northern part. These ports can become the storage places. From there, you can put pipelines of 50 kilometers on either side. Entire Kerala will get covered. So this is another aspects of the roadmap. Then next one is the procurement redesign and alignment for the buses. We need to see, you can't buy the cost of bus is, if it electric bus is diesel is X plus Y is electric, X plus Y plus Z is fuel cell, because fuel cell cost is slightly high. So the fuel cell, another key important aspects is how to indigenize. In fact, KPIT Technologies have already developed one for cars. Now they are working on the marine sector as well as along with the Cochin shipyard, and working for the buses, fuel cell for the buses. In fact, KPIT, Mr. Ravi Pandit will be covering in his session. So how to indigenize so that the cost of the fuel cell comes down. We would like to go for a per kilometer basis so that it's a best available technology use is ensured and the lowest rate on for a wet lease. The advantage compared to battery electric is that, in fact, we are trying with lithium-ion batteries first. Now LTO battery with Toshiba, we are now trying for the increasing the range and reducing the charging time. They say that with the 80% of state of charge, you can reach in 8 minutes with LTO batteries. In fact, we are trying now in the Kochi Metro, Water Metro boards. We'll experiment with that, and then but for the long haul and especially water transport, where you can't have charging centers everywhere and people can't, the boats cannot stop so much. So then the fuel cell is the best alternative. For short distance, the battery, probably we need an ideal mix of battery plus fuel cell, so that that's the R&D part which the SCT College of Engineering is doing. Then investment in hydrogen fueling infrastructure, and then engagement and consultation with OEMs and operators. This is where the role for, in fact, for the ARA and certifying agencies come, and MORTH has been very supportive. In fact, one more agency is the PESO, which needs to approve up to 300 bar. Now they have given permission. So in fact, up to 700 bar should be allowed. That's another initiative which probably Government of India will be taking soon to make the whatever is used in Europe and Japan, and they're all high standard, whether it is Mirai car or Hyundai's vehicle. So we need to probably build the storage tanks with carbon fiber within India. At present, I think not many manufacturers are there. It's like a chicken and egg situation. Since there are no manufacturer, we are not permitting. So the PESO need to look at probably giving approval for up to 700 bar. Those who are using the imported technology, we should allow that. At the same time, we should promote more Indians to go for these manufacturing the high pressure cylinders, which can withstand up to 700 bar. Then these are the statistics. Probably all the Honorable Minister has covered. Then 4,000, almost 5,000 vehicles are already registered in the electric EV sector. But we found that the EV side, from back two-wheelers, three-wheelers, and up to cars, it is going very fast. Regarding buses, I think it is not, the adoption is not much, because one is the charging time is much more, the battery size, then you need to replace the battery. These are all the disadvantages. I think the hydrogen fuel cell answers everything. Now, this is what you're seeing in the right side is the Water Metro, which I think Alstom has developed the body. Then this is like a control room. It's like this is how a boat operator, and skipper, Shrang, all of them will be sitting here. In fact, everything is it's like a fly-by-wire system in what you see in the aircrafts. So we are using, I think, the ex-Navy and ex-Coast Guard people as drivers, so that they will be able to, take the boats. This is the, and Siemens did the battery integration. It's now ready for inauguration. So we have requested, in fact, the Honorable Ambassador of Germany to India has wanted to be the first passenger in the Water Metro. So there we are looking at how to extend the range of Water Metro so that we can take from across the state, right from Kovalam up to another 530 kilometers up to the Kasaragod, northern part of Kerala. We have got waterways. So National Waterway 3. Now dredging is over up to Cochin on Kottapuram. So now I think soon we will be extending up across the state. So there we need hydrogen fuel cell boats. Another important aspect is the PRT, personalized rapid transit systems, or the hydrogen ports. In fact, you might have seen in the Heathrow airport, in fact, where they use electric ports, PRT. Same thing can be converted into hydrogen ports, and cities, tier 2 cities in India can go for PRT as an option for the instead of metro. Up to 15,000 PHPDG easily they can manage as a last mile connectivity, as well as integrating various modes of transport into one, whether integrating the rail, road, airport, then bus stands and central business districts through hydrogen ports is another project which we are working. The DPR is under preparation by SESTA for the main cities and the main 10 stations of the semi-high-speed silver line. So that is another, that will create another demand for hydrogen. So demand generation is another important aspect if we need to, the cost of hydrogen to come down and cost of maybe the usage of electrolyzers need to come down. So then potential, in fact, this is a potential which we identified for Kerala with a lot of water bodies and sunshine and the wind. 9.1 gigawatt can be generated as the RE capacity. In fact, offshore wind I have not added. Offshore wind is another thing because 530 kilometers in the coastal area. I think we should be looking at just like Australia has now signed up with Japan for export of green hydrogen. Green ammonia export from Kerala ports should become a reality using the wind, offshore wind and solar. I am sure that Kerala can become self-reliant soon. Probably some of the catalysts why the one is a NGT ban on the diesel vehicles. That is another major boost for the looking for alternate solutions for a cleaner and greener technologies and alternate fuels in the transport sector. Scrappage policy which the government of India has announced. Kerala's EV policy, which I already covered, then pilot project which we are, and the assessment which we are doing. Fuel already Tata has made the fuel cell buses in India. In fact, ARI approval is awaited, and then indigenization of fuel cell stacks is another key area which I think we are we should look for, and already KPIT will be covering in their presentation. As far as the green ammonia production, in fact, I was just mentioning about chloralkaline units. Ramgur Cochin Chemicals already generating this as a byproduct. Only we need to purify it and then make it 99.99 up to 4 digits. Companies like Air Products, Linde, Ador. Then we have got a floating solar in the Cochin International Airport, which the Honorable Minister was mentioning, which is probably first airport in the entire world to become 100% green and solar. There we have got the floating solar and generate power that IOC has come forward to set up green hydrogen generation unit, spending something around 100 crores, which will be used as for the filling the feeder buses to the metro and the airport. BPCL and Air Products already they invested in that. NTPC has also shown interest. GAIL is another company which has laid the pipeline from Kochi LNG terminal up to Mangalore. So they have also shown interest. In fact, they will be making their presentation today. This in nutshell is a presentation about the roadmap of Kerala. Thank you.
Thank you very much, sir. Interesting to see how Kerala government has taken pretty much an advanced stage of this feasibility, as far as feasibility is concerned. My question would be, sir, that you must have, while doing this feasibility for implementation purpose, you would have identified some kind of a regulatory and the policy, all those requirements which support you may require from the national government. Okay. So any kind of identification is done as far as those national support is concerned, be it policy, be it funding, or be it regulation. So later on there is no problem in the implementation. Yes. Jyotilal sir, you have to unmute yourself.
Yeah. Thanks a lot. In fact, I covered part of it in my presentation itself. See, one of it is, as Amitabh Khan sir has mentioned, we need to reduce the cost of the hydrogen. So that means one is you allow the transmission cost as well as distribution cost to be reduced or made nil to start with, so that more people will generate green hydrogen. So that's a way to reduce the cost. That is one thing. Second is GST. Now electric vehicles is covered under GST 5%. Basically it's an electrified spectrum. Starts with the hybrid, then it is battery electric, and then it's a fuel cell. So it's only that battery is replaced by fuel cell. So you need to treat it at par. Third one is probably Kerala is the first state as far as road tax is concerned. It is at par with the electric vehicles. So it is now 2.5% is the tax rate for electric and hybrid. So the road tax is second. GST is third. Then we need to bring in, as I was mentioning about hydrogen ports, PRT, we need to bring in the standards. MOHUA need to deploy, bring in the standards for the hydrogen PRT. Just like Metrolite, they have brought the standards. I think that needs to be brought up. Then ISFS charges and wheeling charges I already covered, which are the power utility need to bring in. Then the transitional roadmap need to be prepared for the country, just like we have done for the Kerala state. I think similar thing, national roadmap need to be prepared for the country, including the hydrogen highways, which need to be planned. Then ammonia storage. See, another important aspect is the ammonia. Converting green hydrogen only need the compression cost and the transportation cost need to be reduced. Otherwise, that's a huge cost to compress, store, and then distribute it. So that how the best way is converting the ammonia or methanol. In fact, one more area is the methanol usage. Up to M20 engines are already there. Actually, Ashok Leyland along with the IIT Madras is now working on the, you can use it this instead of diesel, you can up to 20% blending is now allowed. The same engine, you can Ashok Leyland buses can be run on the green methanol, which is produced from the green hydrogen. Now, up to M100 engine, actually Scania had a plant in Mysore, which is closed down. They waited for almost 4 years for the approval of the M100. So M100 engine technology is already available. So we need to develop the M100 engines so that methanol itself can be straight away used as a fuel. Apart from maybe we can start with the blending up to 20%. The blending agents now Ashok Leyland as well as IIT and ARI is now working on the correct blending agent so that the corrosion properties of the methanol can be reduced. So that is high. Then hydrogen ICE engines is another opportunity. Then you replace the diesel generators with hydrogen generators. In fact, I saw some of the hydrogen generators which are developed in US. So that is another area for then dedicated hydrogen highways I already covered. Then hydrogen compatible pipelines. In fact, GAIL will be now itself blending is allowed. So in the CNG, so mandatory blending as well as use of these existing pipelines for the hydrogen transportation is another area. Then developing the ports and just like Petronet LNG terminals have now come up at the Dahej as well as in Kochi. We need to think of having these hydrogen terminals both for storage as well as export in our ports. Then use, last but not the least, we need to say wind solar. The ideal, earlier we used to talk about either solar or wind. Combining both the five elements, all the 5 elements are you've got energy, potential sources of energy, whether it is biomass, the fish waste, the agriculture waste, or the slaughterhouse waste. There is no concept called waste. Even plastic can be converted into energy, hydrogen. So how do we mix two? Like wind solar is another good opportunity. I think Windstream was just demonstrating that. We are also trying in our some of the solar boats, which the Honorable Minister was mentioned about the solar boat. We are putting, apart from the solar, put the wind so that the fishing boats can go easily from switch over from diesel or kerosene to hydrogen and solar, wind, solar and electric. Then how to convert the waste into energy. These are the, then last but not the least, PESO need to approve up to 700 bar. So just because there are no manufacturer doesn't mean that we need to wait for the manufacturers to develop. Already there will be umpteen companies which are all using maybe carbon fiber for the storage. We need to approve the PESO approval, regulatory approvals for early approval, both from ARI side as well as the PESO side is very crucial if we need to. Then offshore wind and potential for export, which Amitabh Khan sir has mentioned, is this in a nutshell is maybe the areas which need to be attended urgently to make a green hydrogen economy a reality. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, sir. I think one of the questions come from in the chat box from Mr. Gerald World Bank regarding the cost as compared to the electric buses, but it has been answered by Anand. So Gerald, Government of Kerala is working on this feasibility. I think soon this will be in public domain. So you can probably refer the detailed calculation behind this. So we will be soon inform you. So am I right, sir?
Yeah. Already is there. I will share it in the group so that everyone can go through.
Okay. We have another question from Sumit Mishra. Do you think any supply side constraint from OEM perspective did you have any discussion with bus manufacturers to supply hydrogen buses to cater to your demand, sir?
Yeah, already we are in touch with the Tatas. In fact, the ISRO and developed given the technology, they are working on it. Only ARI approval is awaited. So that's the issue. Then Ashok Leyland is also working on it. They are working both on the methanol. We are working with Ashok Leyland team on the use of green hydrogen as and convert into methanol so that it becomes a reality and existing infrastructure itself can be used for the storage and transportation. So we are working both the OEMs. Apart from this, there are companies like New Era Fuel Cells and other companies which have come forward to invest in India to manufacture the fuel cell buses. At present, I think Chinese buses are the cheapest, but unfortunately, we need to develop in-house capacity and Atmanirbhar Bharat and make in India so that it becomes cheaper rather than going for import. Toyota has got good fuel cell buses. We have requested, in fact, Toyota will be covering in their presentation. The fuel cell buses are extremely good, and only thing, unless you make it here, the import duty is very prohibitively high. It may not be worthwhile.
Yeah. Thanks, sir. One question, if I may take, sir, from my side. So this, as far as the electric vehicles, electric buses are concerned, there is already a subsidy scheme going on FAME 2. And as you are aware, the MAHUA is also in process of drafting another subsidy scheme. Do you think it is worth taking up the hydrogen fuel cell also, because the scheme should be more technology agnostic and I welcome more and more futuristic technology, sir?
Yeah, definitely. In fact, I forgot to mention that. Actually, is nothing but electric bus. This is also electric. Electrified is a bigger spectrum. We need to we look at it as a battery as a storage device. Don't think that battery electric vehicle means only is electric. All are electric only, except that storage. You store energy in different forms. So instead of battery, you are replacing it with fuel cell. So definitely, FAME 2 should cover, as Kerala government has done it. Taxation at par. GST should be at par. The FAME 2 should cover everything. In fact, we should cover a little bit more subsidy for the hydrogen, so that with the National Hydrogen Mission, this will give a impetus for people to look for fuel cell for the trucks as well as long haul buses. Definitely. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. I see no further question in the chat box. And I think with this, I would like to thank everybody for being part of this panel discussion and who has also joined from various locations. And with this, I'll pass on the baton to my colleague, Mr. Shirish Mahendru, for the next panel discussion. Shirish, over to you.